And yeah, we are probably not quite a minute early, but hi everybody. Welcome to the What's on an Elephant and Castle Facebook page. I'm Nick from Retribe, and I'm really excited with today's guest, Stacy Idema, who is a business performance coach and an advisor to small businesses. So really excited because the Elephant and Castle area has got a lot of small to medium-sized businesses, Stacy, and would probably people listening would like to hear some advice on how you've been advising people, but also small businesses over this last year and a half, and also your journey into where you are and why you're in London, which is pretty cool because you're from the States originally.
Yeah.
So while I do the little links, I'm just going to link up some Facebook pages. Can you introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, by the way, very much for being a part, allowing me to be a part of this. This is really exciting. As Nick mentioned, I'm Stacy Idema. I am a business and performance coach, and I work with small businesses. So I'll back up a little bit. My journey to getting to London, to being here in London. I actually have, I had a corporate career. So I've been coaching 8 years, full time almost two. But the work that I did in corporate for 26 years was very much working with executives, leaders, innovators in usually small divisions of large organizations, or working in very small, very innovative types of organizations, leading different programs. So for me, between that experience and being the daughter of two small business owners, and actually being the former wife of a small business owner, I've lived in business basically my entire life. And I had an opportunity to really call myself a global business leader, literally call myself a global business leader, when I made the decision probably 16 months ago to start networking outside of the States and just getting more familiar with those across the pond, if you will, for lack of better terms. And then when my life situation changed and I needed a place to live, I decided that I was going to take my business and myself to London. So I packed up a couple of suitcases and got on an airplane in the middle of a pandemic and found myself in London. And I committed to 3 months, but I'm almost at the end of 6 and have loved every moment of it, even the parts that weren't great, being in a pandemic in a little tiny Airbnb in the middle of London and knowing only a few people. So it's it's been a learning experience on the differences in culture. So I truly believe that business problems are really very similar. There isn't much, there isn't a lot of difference. I do believe that there's a little bit of difference in the culture and how people view work. I believe in the States, it's more of a live to work mentality versus a work to live mentality. But that still doesn't mean that the business challenges aren't the same. So it has really given me a very firsthand perspective that allows me to coach more broadly and really allow my experiences, my exposure, and helping businesses on either side of the world
Mm.
from a best practice standpoint.
I'm really interested in what you talk about in North America, this kind of live to work mentality, which really leads to a lot of burnout and a lot of disconnect between people, their work, and their families.
Yes.
And I'm interested to know your kind of take on that, especially over the last year and a half, where work and people have been working from home, so everything's kind of been interwoven, with work and life balances, but really it's the idea of people separating work and home life. What you've seen from pre-pandemic, and then kind of the solutions that you've been able to offer people, but also maybe the change in mindset, and then maybe we can also get into what does mindset mean, but so maybe we should do that first. I'm not sure. But yeah, basically let's look at the word mindset, because I know that comes up quite a bit with what you do. So the mindset of people with this live to work mentality, when we've realized that, we have to be able to combine both live and family equally.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, there's the live to work mentality it's inherent in a leader. It's inherent in a business owner, really, because there is more than just making money. There's making money to pay your employees so that they can turn around and go feed their families and pay their bills. There's the mindset of, especially with those with whom I work, they're very passionate about what they do. Often, family-owned businesses, which I too come from. So, I know how that resonates, where you're all in this thought that if you're all in, you can't do anything else, which it's not a bad mindset. It's hard to be all in on everything when you can't step away and take a break and allow some separation, or have enough trust in yourself to trust the people that you've hired to help you grow your business. Then there really creates, it really shifts into more of that live to work mindset versus the work to live. That said, the problems are still real no matter what mindset you're in, because when you are a business owner, it never leaves. The thought of your business, what you need to do better, how you need to grow it, the mistakes that you made. And frankly, for a lot of business owners, they don't leverage the resources that they have, either with peers or with coaches or with mentors they should leverage them more. And I don't want to get into the shoulds, woulds, coulds, because you can go down a rabbit hole of that. However, there's so many resources out there that allow you to get out of your head. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges with the small business owners is they feel like they have to do it themselves. And that's not really the case. It is, there are other people that either bring a great perspective on something, they can do something better than we can do, as myself included, even as a small business owner. There's that mindset that you have to do it all, and it's really not. And I think even more so to your point about, there's the pre-COVID and then there's the COVID, and being at home and being immersed in family is good, and it creates more challenges. It's good because you get to see what you've been missing, and it can be bad because you get to see what you're missing.
Yeah, I'm really, there's so much that I could talk to you about with regards to what you said, but I want to go to this, the idea of what people put into their work. As small business owners, like, we think that we've got to put everything into our work because we've got to be the provider. We've got to pay the bills. We've got to make sure the kids have their school uniforms and lunches, and it's like this lot of pressure to provide, but also in that, how does it take people? Because what I think about is, I think about the parent who is like absent all the time because they're like work, and their attitude is, I'm working to provide you with things. But where's the balance where the work takes over, and then and I want to go straight to children. Where do children start to feel, oh, mom or dad is abandoning me because they're doing all of this work and they're not paying enough attention to me?
Oh, that's a hard question. So everyone's different. Every child is different. Their needs are different. Kids sense your energy. Kids know exactly where your head's at when you're with them or when you're not. And when you're with them, they very much know if you're actually really present and with them. And honestly, they speak the truth. And I'll never forget the day that, much like what you described, I was a single mom for many years. And it was a weekday night, and I was working. And at the time, I'd probably been working 60 to 70 hours a week. And I'll never forget when the boys said, Mom, you work all the time. When are you going to play with us? And that was a kick in the stomach. So kids, I guess here's the thing, kids get it. And for a business owner, a human really, to make the decision that, you know what, I've given my time and attention to my business, let's say 80%. I'm worthy of 20%. I'm actually worthy of more, because at the end of the day, people don't die regretting what they did. They die regretting what they didn't do.
Yeah.
And so, not that you want to go to that space, but remembering that there is only so much time, and time is a currency. It's a currency that we all have. So how do we use it wisely? Even if our undivided attention with our children is only 60 to 90 minutes a night, the fact that it's there and it's undivided, they will remember. And in that, even communicating, it's one thing for a parent to say, I'm working to provide for you. Kids don't understand that. When you break it down to the level that they're at and be honest and truthful, it's interesting what conversations might come of it. You know, there might be some wisdom, infinite wisdom in that 8-year-old mind that comes out as you describe what it is that you do. So I do believe that as parents, and as being a parent and then working with my clients who are parents, there's something that we can actually learn from being with our children. And so when we take that time to actually be present with them, we can bring some of that, whether it's play or just that infinite wisdom, back to our business as well.
I think we're in changing times. I feel like, I started my first business in 1996, and I definitely learned things back then about what time I had to be at my desk, because it was all about competition. If my competition was at their desks at 8:30, I had to be at my desk at 8. And it was this real drive, and I don't know what you call it, but see who's the last one to leave the office kind of thing. So to kind of put in the FaceTime of like, I'm in the office more than anybody else. And a lot of that time was just, I mean, social media wasn't around, but it was just watching videos or doing something silly just so I could pretend that everyone thought that I was working. And I think that these were pressures that were just put on us in the late 90s and in the early 2000s about performance and being seen to being performing at work. And I feel like we're just in this flux. And I think that the pandemic has brought this around, where people are starting to question, the amount of time that they are spending at work, that amount of productivity, instead of like duration, 8 hours, I can probably get just the same amount done in 4 hours if I learned how to schedule my time better. What kind of experience have you seen that you have with regards to helping people manage their time better, knowing that the office is no longer a necessity? It can be a bit of a luxury. You can have these kind of different work environments, but really it's about, I don't know I don't know the language, but it's about productivity rather than how much time you're at a desk. Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, it does. So productivity is definitely probably the right word for it. The one thing, there's a couple things. So
or task driven, maybe that's it. Like,
yeah.
So
back to the comment about time and time being a currency. It is the only thing that every single human on this earth has equal of. There's nothing else there in the world. So actually, one of the first things I do with my clients is we actually do an inventory of how you spend your time, even down to if you happen to be somebody who does all the grocery shopping, what does that actually look like? Because people think, oh, I'm just going to run to the grocery store, drive to the grocery store. Well, they don't take into consideration the drive there and back, the packing and the unpacking of the groceries, putting them away. And so what might seem like a 45-minute event really takes them 2 hours and 15 minutes, and they do that 3 times a week.
Mm.
Um, so something simple like that. And it's that exercise alone, when you have to go through and look at 2 weeks of how you spent your time, you learn your habits, you learn your activities that are less productive. And frankly, you could pay somebody to do that work for you, and you could reclaim time that way. And when it comes to even being in business, little things like what are the routines in which you give yourself time to level set? How do you manage your day? Every time your computer pings, are you checking your email? Or you shutting off your email and you're only doing it in the morning for 30 minutes and at night for 30 minutes?
Mm.
And communicating as such. It's okay to tell somebody, you know what? I check email twice a day. You can do auto response, you can do whatever that is. The other thing is, really your values and your priorities. If one of your values is quality family time, yet that quality family time is on Sunday for 2 hours at dinner, then the decisions you're making during the week aren't typically aligning with your values. And so that's where often then you're skewed in how you're showing up to perform in the rest of your week. So they are simple. There's simple ways to look at how productive you are, but they're hard ways. It's the hard reality of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you're valuing your time, because your time is currency, and we underestimate the value of it.
What's coming to mind through what you're talking about is that planning is really important. But I do know someone, it's funny, I won't name their name, but they spend 80% of their day planning and 20% actually doing. Like they're literally in all the 3 calendars, and they're doing this and I'm moving this around. It's like they're obsessed with planning, and it keeps them like away, not present to what they're actually meant to be doing. So what's the balance of planning, and then how do we balance work, home, our own self-care? What's kind of a general split of what people should allocate for certain things, knowing that everyone's different and everyone's circumstance is different. But I suppose the whole thing is, how do we plan without over planning?
That's a good call. So I think for everybody it's different. I do know, not only personally, but even as I've worked with my clients, it is often, it works. How should I say this? I find that they find more success when they dedicate at least an hour a week to plan for the week ahead.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean everything is set in stone. That means general guidelines, understanding what, some key either projects or deliverables are that they would like to accomplish, and then also inserting the time for themselves. And it may only be that they give themselves, especially if this is new, they only give themselves 15 minutes a day to meditate or to journal or whatever that little self-care thing is. But as you start to incorporate that, often then they inherently take more time because they like it.
Mm.
The other thing is really acknowledging what are the hardest things to do that are the game changers in your business. And those usually you do first in your day. Whether you are an early riser or a late riser, whatever that looks like for you, because it isn't then you get to the end of the day and you think, oh, I didn't do that, and I really needed to do that. And then the guilt sets in. It's when your momentum is the highest, you're the freshest. And when you do it during that time, often you are in your flow state, if you will. So think of it, Nick, this might resonate with you when you're on the ice and you're in game. That, for the business owner, that's game time. And that game time only lasts a certain amount of time, but the rest of the time is practice. So then what are the other things that you do that you know what to do? And it's a lot about repetition And it's a lot about doing different things. I don't want to say try, because trying in my mind is thinking. Doing is actually doing, whether it's little nuggets or it's big nuggets. But that play time, that go time, usually is a short amount of time. So what's the best time for you to do that go time? And then how do you plan out the rest of your day that it looks more like practice?
It's funny because just before you made the analogy of the hockey, and because I'm wearing something quite sporty today, um, my university bunny hug, or hoodie. I was wondering why is it that the analogies between business and is always with reference to sport, and I'm wondering whether or not this is something that's actually healthy, where I've spoken to some leaders in business and they're like, Nick, I want to make my team all like Tom Brady, the American football quarterback who's Tom Brady. He is a different entity to anything else. But he was like, I want my people to be able to perform like he does in the fourth quarter, in reference to American football.
Yeah.
And I thought about it and I was like, why? Why are we making these analogies between business and sport? And are we then is it something that is not obtainable? Is it something that is really practical? Or can we start coming up with more analogies that are more business oriented rather than, this kind of, competitive type, really elite, high performance type attitude of someone like Tom Brady, who's like a once in a lifetime person, doing things that other human beings just are not capable of doing because he's a freak of nature. And why are we trying to duplicate in the sports world into the business world? If that again makes sense, it's more of a kind of a rant.
No, I can see where that would be a challenge, because the end goal is that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, really the only person to compete with is yourself. Um, at least that's how I work with my clients, because often they are comparing themselves to other people, and that comparison gets in the way. It gets in the way of their own talents. It gets in the way of the things that scare them, that they know that they need to do, but they don't know how to do it. Or there is a perfectionist mindset. So instead of doing things and figuring out what's working along the way, they wait till they create this perfect scenario in their head, and then they do it. But that perfect scenario never comes to fruition, and it becomes this what's the word? This big grandiose thing that is never obtainable. Yet, really, at what they want is obtainable. Especially when you start to ask them to talk about it. What does that ideal state? What does that Shangri-La look like, if you will? So, but your point is very valid in that competitive sports mindset and to be. I think the value of sports is the team aspect. So if you remove this phenomena of a human and bring it back to the core of the fact that there are multiple people on that team, each one has their own strength, or maybe even have a couple of strengths, or they're diverse in how they work. How can you as a business owner not only leverage your strength as that leader, but the strengths of others? So in that time, in that really small window of flow state, how can you be your best self and do your best work, and then step out and help and assist and answer questions and be more engaged and learn and adapt and kind of go back to that humanism piece.
Yeah. Oh, I agree completely. And I think it's something that we're working on. It's something that we try, rather than the word team, you could say tribe, and belonging to, a community within the workspace where you have a purpose. Yeah. And I think that instead of, the mindset that I was brought up with, which is like to compete against the people who I work with,
Mm.
which is to, to get, often I had to do a lot of sales, and there might be another guy on my, in my office doing sales. The night before, we might have gone for a pint, and he may have just said a name about a lead. And I would pipe into the office before, and I might take advantage of that. No, because I have to beat him, because there's a big white wall with our name on it with sales next to it. And it's all about, competing against one another. And I find that, if we can start to create an atmosphere in the work environment where people are challenging themselves to be the best version of themselves, to challenge the team to rise up as a tribe, as a team, then not only are the results better, but people, you're not going into work going, I've got to beat Tom today.
Mm.
I've got to beat his sales targets, rather than, what can I do for Tom? Because he might be able to help me some in some other ways too. And so in a way, is that something that you find is changing with leadership roles, where people are starting to enable people to feel part of, rather than, the center of their team or their tribe at work?
You know, for those that really want and understand and appreciate the value and the fact that everyone has something different. Yes, I am seeing that. And we could go on, and it could be a completely different topic. A lot of what you're talking about is very masculine energy, and that masculine energy isn't just, for men or the male. Women have it too. And it's really that do, think, a very linear. Whereas more of the feminine is the creative, and being a little bit more flowy and allowing for more ambiguity, if you will. And for those that either are challenged by their own mental health and have come to realize that the do, the go is really taking a toll, and now they step back and say, okay, this can't work this way, because I would have to say, especially the younger generation are saying, no, we don't have to do it this way. And they're bucking the system. And I believe that it's a little bit about, it becomes a little bit about pushing that boulder uphill, because there's, those of us that are a little bit older than that are seeing it and feeling it. And we're feeling it later in life than they are. They're, seeing it earlier in life. And I commend them for that. And I believe that it's starting to wear off on others. Or you see business owners that have been through one divorce or two divorces, and they now understand what happened, what went wrong, and they don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
It's too painful. And as humans, we're designed to be connected to other humans and to have people in our life. And so, with the thought of not having family and friends, and that all-in mentality has brought them to a place where they're either alone or they're having to start over again. And so I see it happening. I at least see a lot of curiosity in those of us that are a little bit older doing it.
Yeah.
Doing it is the hard part, because they don't know where to start, and it's overwhelming. And it doesn't have to be.
I'm looking down because I'm trying to find a picture that I sent to someone a few weeks ago about masculine and feminine traits. And as you talk about that, because I think it's really important that people start to understand that. Sorry if I'm looking down, because I really want to try to find this photo. And that masculine, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're in a male body or a female body. These are energy traits, and I'll just try to remember some of them, because I can't find it.
I have a list too, so I can add to it.
But they were like things like, the sacred feminine is like the arts and intuition and altruism and tenderness, nurturing, kind, creative, like you said. And then the masculine is like law, mathematics, sciences, structure, order. And and I feel even with the word, and I know you use the word performance, even I find the word performance being very masculine driven, right?
Yeah.
Like, and rather than results,
Mm.
rather than, and I feel like it is on this shift. And I feel like if anybody is interested in this little part of the conversation, is to look up the different energies of the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, because and I've learned a little bit about that. And there's the yin and the yang symbol, which is meant to be the balance of both. And I think there's a serpent in between. And our goal as humans is to be the serpent in between and balance these. And we've been so masculine driven for so long that I feel like if more people were just to be aware of it,
Yeah.
just to be aware of showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning, fighting your way on the tube, just to compete against your fellow people that you work with is a highly driven masculine energy. And just to look at the alternatives, because they can be a lot softer to yourself, a lot more compassionate to yourself, but then a lot more compassionate to the people that you work with.
Yeah.
So just to, I suppose the thing is Stacy, are people becoming, and you did talk a little bit about now, but are people becoming more curious about how, in terms of performing, they can actually start looking at their own traits as human beings and what we learned as people growing up, because the things that I learned from my father and from my coaches and from my teachers was all about that high elite level performance and win at all cost attitude. And that really was very detrimental in my life, because I was taught that I can sort out all my own problems. I was given the whole real men don't do these certain things like cry or ask for help. And a lot of people who know my journey, they were like, I didn't ask for help until it was almost too late. But saying help me saved my life. So how can maybe saying help me in other ways, it's not a weakness, it's actually a sign of strength.
Yeah.
And maybe in being able to be in the work environment and saying, do you know what, I actually don't know. Let's figure this out together. When people have done that, I felt so much of a bond,
Yeah.
so much when there's some vulnerability and honesty, it creates this bond.
So if I hear what you're saying, the question is, how do you ask differently? Um, you know, honestly, you start by finding a space that you feel the most comfortable, even if it is uncomfortable, to be able to practice. So, for example, for somebody to have a partner or a spouse and to be at home in a safe space and to be able to say, you know what, I want to do this differently. I don't know what it looks like. How can we explore this?
Mm.
And it doesn't, I mean, your typical habit takes what, 4 to 6 weeks to develop, and you have to do it over a certain period of time. But there's something to be said about just stepping forward and saying, I don't know what this looks like. Even for, let's just say, Nick, you are working 80 hours a week and it's killing you. And you say to your partner, I know that this is not good for us. I don't know what to do differently. I want to do something differently. I know it's not good for us. Business is good, but I'm so ingrained in my routine, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Because often in that conversation comes solutions, or at least ideas that you can implement to do different. It doesn't have to be this huge, robust event or extravaganza or something to do different. It's acknowledging what is today and maybe what isn't working or how it's happening and how you would like for it to be different. And in that is vulnerability and creativity, actually, because you're not necessarily going in with the end solution or the end goal in mind, but you're opening up your world to doing something different and having the conversation.
Yeah, can you imagine if you thought to yourself that you knew all the answers? How what a boring life that would be. If And I think that I do find that a lot with guys that I chat with, is that they think that they're pressure they put on themselves to having to come up with the solution, you know, and why is it that I think that my brain can come up with all of the solutions? And I think that, again, that's a lot of pressure that people put on themselves. But I know that when I get into a state where I'm like, I don't know, guide me, ask for help, you know, then more answers come, and they come in a lot more kinder, gentle, more compassionate way. But you as a coach, what happens when you don't know? When people who come to you go, Stacy, help me, and you're like, oh, like how do you process that?
That's a great question. So as a recovering perfectionist, now it's gotten a lot easier, I believe, because I've built such a network of those who have strengths that are so different than mine, and that I continue to learn from every day. So, you know, even in a conversation I had with a business owner a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I want to sell my portion of the business in the next 2 to 5 years. Do you know how to do that? And at the end of the day, logically, absolutely. I can help him through that. He's like, I want to know all your best practices. Well, at the end of the day, the best practices are going to be what is best for him, his business, and his family, and his timeline, and his ultimate end goal. So when people ask me things like this, and there's something I really don't know, it is about, I don't want to say putting it back on them, but all the answers are within each one of us. And it's my job really to help extrapolate what's the best for them.
Yeah.
What's the best for them? In the meantime, if there are truly things that they really, truly need help with, and I don't have information, I can go get it. And now I'm definitely getting more comfortable saying, you know what, I don't have the information, but I will do some checking. And the power in saying, I don't know, however, I have resources, let me do some digging. There's power in knowing that you don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's power in that.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, we're humans, and if we knew all the answers to everything, then it would be a very lonely place because we just wouldn't need anybody.
Yeah, and
I
that's
had a
not.
question. No, that sucks. I had a question.
Yeah.
Oh, so small businesses right now, from what I'm gathering from the word on the street, in this time of coming out of a lockdown and trying to get their businesses flowing again, one of the things that they're really looking for are ideas around business plans.
Yeah.
And also marketing. So how would you say to a small business owner right now, if you didn't have a business plan, what would be the key, like the benefits for it, and also like how do you start? Because I know there's a lot of templates out there, but you know, what are good ways to start with a business plan?
That's a great question. You know, coming from the world that we had to put together 5-year plans every year, 5-year plans are great. I do believe in the power of looking at where you are today and what would ideal look like for you 12 months from now. So even before you sit down and say, what's my business plan? What would ideal state be for you? What's the environment you want to create? What would be an ideal revenue goal? What would be a stretch revenue goal? Who are your clients? And then in that, allowing yourself to sit down and say, and write in an I am, if you will. I am a successful business owner, you know, driving 6 figures of revenue, offering these services. Just creating a power statement for yourself is really helpful. The business templates they're business templates, if you will. So choosing the right one for your business, only you will know what that looks like. But identifying then what your successful outcome would look like for the year, and not so much in a process, but in a results focused. And then from there, putting together, and this is actually what I do with my clients, is we work on a 12-month plan. Then you take from there and you write out what your big goals would be for the year, and usually no more than 10. You also make sure that in your business plan, your business goals is a personal goal. Because you as a business owner are still a human. You still have to show up and be present every day. And so if you aren't doing for you first, it's really hard to also do for your business. So for me, and how I work with my clients on their business plan is really in the form of a coaching plan. So what do they want to, what does it look like for them at the end of that 12 months? What are their big goals, including one for themselves? How does it align to their values? And then it's 1 month at a time towards those bigger goals, and identifying the tasks. And some of the tasks, the monthly tasks, are no-brainers. It's part of the process. And some of them are big heavy hitters. They're the kind that make that you get them comfortable when you set them. And you may not even know how you're going to do it, but you know you'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I imagine there are things that if you don't quite hit your goals or your targets, there's things that you don't use them to beat yourself up, right? Like if they should just be a gentle guide on how you are directing the business.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, hold on, I'm going to turn the light.
Okay.
Hopefully this helps. I'm very much in the dark.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing that I even know through my corporate career. We used to get hung up on how we didn't meet a goal and forget about all the steps that we took, and that maybe we didn't meet 100% of the goal in that month, but we met 75%. And so the same rules apply. People talk about how they try. I actually wish we could remove try from our vocabulary. Because in my head, if you're trying, you're only thinking about it. If you're actually doing the work, you're doing. There isn't a try. And so when you may not meet a goal in that particular month and you did the work, you still did the work. You did the work that got you to 75%. You keep moving to get to 100. You don't give up just because you hit 75%.
Really good advice. And I think that's one of the things that I try to do it to myself too, is that, like, you know, we're in a world of change, of transformation. You know, I think that businesses, I think that if we come to terms with the fact that, you know, we don't have to operate a business like if we started a company in the 90s or in the early 2000s, we don't have to operate our business today on those same principles. I think it's, you know, it's a world of transformation, of becoming more human, more people focused. I know one of my business partners talks about, you know, HR departments, you know, human resources, and that is it. You know, the people who work for you are your biggest asset.
Yeah.
And we're now in a culture where businesses are starting to make sure that the people who work for them are looked after, because they look after the business. And that's what I'm really happy about, is that the corporate world and the SME world is changing to become more people focused. And that's exciting, because that's what it's about, really. It's us being more human, more gentle, more compassionate towards each other.
Yeah, I mean, human. It's all about being human, and it's undervalued and underrated. And it's even in the world of what we have with all the gadgets and technologies, and I'm looking around just in front of me, seeing everything that we have, we still have that human interaction. And as somebody who spent the first 33 days in London without face-to-face contact, I mean, Nick, you were my first like face-to-face human conversation after 33 days, other than the cute little checkout line girl who was super bubbly at the grocery store. I mean, the power of human connection. And I believe that COVID has taught us that. you know, for many of us, we got to be more with family. And so they're realizing the value of family. And for others, we were disconnected. And so it's really brought us back to what we truly need as human beings. But at the end of the day, we're all human. And even if we're an introvert who doesn't like being around people, we still need that connection and those people. And so you're spot on when you say that. It is about the
And
human.
it is. And I think that in the work environment, it enables me to develop like a purpose with my work, you know, and then in that it becomes passionate. And I think that's one of the gifts that I've been able to have in what I do, is that my work is now my purpose and my passion. And I urge anyone out there who's, you know, looking for that in work, is to find that in work rather than I am going to work for a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know, it should be about purpose and passion. And yeah, do you have any final comments on that? Because we've reached our 45 minutes.
You ended on it beautifully, because I too, I love people, and this is why. And I was somebody that had to have a job for a paycheck, but I also learned as part of that process, and even working with my own coach years ago, that you can have something that's a means to an end.
Yeah.
But there is something more valuable when you have purpose. And so finding that is really key to, you know,
It's a
living
gift.
life. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Stacy, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck with everything. I know we'll probably end up meeting up in another week or so. Yeah, so thank you for joining us.
thanks, Nick.
And thank you everybody at the What's On at Elephant and Castle Facebook page. Join me this Thursday at 11 a.m. where I'm going to continue our little conversations around tender and tough. Hope to see you then. Thanks everybody. See you later. Bye.